got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about the latest episode of Andor. I believe it is episode 8 of the show, and we're kind of heading towards a new story arc for the series, which is pretty cool in my opinion to see what's going on for this episode. We do get to touch on a couple of different characters around the galaxy, so to speak. But we are going to go ahead and discuss what happened in the episode and then give you our thoughts. So yeah, we'll just jump right in. So I'll probably just say what's happening to each of the different characters in the show as opposed to, the order it popped up in the show. But let's see, let's talk about a couple of them. Luthen, he is... probably, in my opinion, the most intrigued for myself of what's going on in this episode. So Luthen talks to his storekeeper, which is also named Clea. At first, we couldn't hear the K part of the name, and we thought it was Leia, but Clea, who is his assistant at the store, they talk back and forth a little bit about some of the rebellion stuff, and he decides he needs to take off and go talk to somebody. And we actually bring the character Saw Gerrera back into the picture, and is also being played by Forrest Whitaker, which played the character in Rogue One. So it's cool to have him back and actually reprising his role. That way we can, keep the same actor for the same character. It's really cool to see that. But the reason why Luthen went to go see him is that he's trying to exchange some Imperial parts to, enhance whatever Saw Gerrera has with his ships and whatnot. But it's in exchange for Saw talking to one of Luthen's buddies and seeing if he will join them in a mission. But Saw really doesn't want to be a part of it. He doesn't want to risk his group's lives for somebody else, so to speak. And so he isn't quite convinced yet to actually go with what Luthen is trying to convince him to do. So we kind of get to see, in the next episode, probably more on what's going on there. But I feel like he's going to end up helping in some way, shape, or form. So we'll have to wait to see that.
One little note about him that I wanted to bring up is he looks much healthier than he does in Rogue One. He doesn't have his breathing mask, and he's not really having any breathing problems that we can tell from the, couple minutes that we saw him on film. So there's got to be something that gets him from this stage of health to where he's at in Rogue One.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if they actually show what happens to him. My guess is he might get crushed in some way, but I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure they'll cover it at some point. But yeah, that is worth noting that he looks a lot healthier in this show. Let's see. Well, we have Mon Mothma. She is having more parties, get-togethers, and whatnot with different people. One thing that's kind of key from these scenes is that her daughter mentions that her school friend, or I don't remember his name, but he's been showing up more often. So he's been coming back to the parties quite a lot to talk to Mon Mothma. So, the two of them are really starting to click in the sense that they could be good partners moving forward in the rebellion. Obviously, they still aren't, talking openly about the rebellion at this point. They're still doing this kind of verbal dance, so to speak, because, they can't reveal to other people that they are working for the rebellion, but they try to keep it secret. I do think another small thing that she tells him is that they got the 400,000 credits. I think that's how much it was from stealing at the heist. But that's about it for Mon Mothma. Cassian, the star of the show, he in the previous episode was sentenced to 6 years in Imperial prison. So we see him get transferred. He still pleads that he's a tourist and he shouldn't be going to this Imperial prison, so to speak. But he gets transferred, and the way he gets transferred, he gets put on a transport, and they literally like lock him into the seat, and he has to stay there all the way during the trip to this prison. It kind of reminds me of Alcatraz, if you know what that is. It's a imperial prison that is out in the middle of the water. So even if these people wanted to try to escape, they'd have to have some sort of boat or something, or be very, very good at swimming to actually make it to land. But when he lands at the base, and the group of them that are in this transport get off, um, they're greeted by three Imperial officers. And when they come up there, they're giving these people a little bit of information on what to expect. But the one that's pretty surprising is we notice that the prisoners don't have shoes on, but the officers do. And the officer clicks a button and they get electrocuted. And it's because they can get electrocuted through the floor. So that's kind of one of the ways that the Empire keeps people in line or at the prison, is by having them all be barefoot, and then if they step on a line, they shock them. He also mentioned that what they felt was level 1 of 3 of shock factor. So hopefully they stay in line. But expanding on that, we see him, go through, I'd probably call like a registration process, where he gets his, I think it's like his name in the system and checked in and all that good stuff. But he gets assigned to not only a workstation, but he also gets assigned to a bunk where he sleeps. And basically, when he gets put into where he works, it's a big room with a bunch of different stations, and they're all working on the same part, so to speak. They're building these things that kind of look like stars in a way. They're huge. They're probably the size of Andor's, like between Andor's knees to his head, probably. It's almost as tall as him when it's put together. But there's a whole bunch of inmates that are all working at separate stations that are all trying to, put these things together and race against the other groups throughout the prison. We'll talk about what they can win in a minute. But another important thing is that although they have all these different stations of people, there's one person there that's in charge, and that happens to be Andy Serkis. You may recognize him from Lord of the Rings. He plays Gollum. In Star Wars, he actually has already played Snoke, but he was a CGI character. One other cool one is that he plays Caesar for Planet of the Apes. So he's the guy that's kind of in charge. He's the manager, trying to make sure people stay in line, and not getting sidetracked. But he makes it very, very apparent to Cassian, do your work, show up, don't do anything out of the ordinary, just do your job and everything will be okay. He's very stern about it. He's also the guy that's kind of in charge of their sleeping quarters. So, like, if you think about college dorms and there's like that one person in charge, that's this guy, except for prison. Andor is shown at his bunk. Like, he has like this little cubby in the wall. There's a couple different things in there that he has access to. He has a bathroom. He has a bed. He has a like little thing he can pull out of the wall for water. He can pull another thing out of the wall for food, which is important to the little competition that they do at work. So if they are the top group for the day, then they get a nice little additive to their food that makes it taste better. If they are not doing so well, well, then it doesn't taste so good. Um, but it's interesting that they can basically like take it out of the wall anytime they want to, and if they're hungry, they can, basically have liquid food or water. Um, at one point, somebody steps out of line in the barracks or the living quarters, and they get zapped. So Andor does actually get to see, if you step out of line in those quarters, that you can, uh, get zapped. One other important thing that happened while they were at
Did,
the base.
did you catch what that actually was? He didn't just step out of line, he committed suicide.
Oh, I did not catch that.
He stepped on the floor knowing he'd get zapped, and they said when the lights are red in the hallway that um you get fried. They don't say zapped, they say fried because the
Mhm.
level is turned up so high. And he had been telling Cassian in a previous, like on Cassian's first day or something, some of the ins and outs, and you could tell he was kind of there was something going on up in his brain that like you got to get out of here or don't trust this or whatever. I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but you could tell he was there was something going on. Like he wasn't just the shut up and do what you're told kind of guy. And right before he stepped on the floor that night, when he did commit suicide, he was saying something to himself of I, again, I don't know what exactly it was, and I'm not sure that it was really super important, but he was, I'm pretty sure, stepping on that floor on purpose, knowing what was going to happen.
Mm. That would definitely add to the tension. Because it seemed like a very, very tense moment, like between the music and how Andor was interpreting it. So you're probably right with that. I did not catch that. One other thing that happened, in my opinion, that was pretty important at the Imperial prison was that when they're being transferred, um, there's like these big long walkways between buildings, and you can see through them. And some of the inmates learn sign language so they can talk to each other from across the base, so to speak. It looks like, they're very, very small, like being able to see them, but they must be able to see each other just enough to understand the sign language. I think that's about it that was important for the base, or the prison, I should say. The next two, I would say, kind of go together. That would be, well, maybe three go together, I should say, which is Cyril, which is our dude at the Bureau of Standards, um, Dedra, or Miro. You can call her either or. She's been referenced as both of those names, and then a little bit of Vel, Cinta, and then what was the last one? It was Andor's friend. Oh, Bix. That was her name. So all of these kind of come together in a way. We start off with Srill is taken by some Imperial officers, and he's going to be questioned about some of the stuff he's been doing. And apparently, he's been trying to get information on Andor repeatedly. And so the Empire's like, dude, why are you doing this? Please stop it. And uh, he basically told them, I used to be a security guard. This guy could be a threat. And he like really pushes the envelope with Dedra. And she's like, I have somewhere to be. Uh, Please stop talking. And then she goes to walk away and he keeps on talking. And I guess to the point where she's basically like, if you open your mouth one more time, it won't be me who you're answering to, which eventually shuts him up. But he's trying to plead that he could be a very valuable asset to the Empire if given the opportunity. And she just really shrugs him off. She just wants to know what information he has, and then, in my opinion, probably take credit for herself. That way she can look a little bit better in the eyes of the Empire. We do get a little discussion with a round table of Imperial higher ups like we have in the past, and they're discussing, what to do. with the information that they got from Srill. And Dedra, wants to be able to go to Ferrix and take care of things, and they are aware that Andor is a problem. And so that's kind of where they're going to start to try to find where he is. I think it's going to be tough for them simply because Andor's given the Imperial prison a different name. So it'll be challenging for them to figure it out. But they do take off and head to Ferrix, being the Imperials, and they're setting up in their little hotel area that they designated as a headquarters. And they had taken Bix's boss and interrogated him, and they also, uh, I would say, kidnapped, so to speak, or taken by force, Bix as well, and we're left to imagine her being interrogated because they shut the door as they put her in the seat. I could have sworn I heard the noise of an interrogation droid, but we never saw it on screen. So that might be there. Uh, the way that Bix's boss looked definitely tells us that they're using a decent amount of force to get information out of people. And I also that's another reason why I thought it was an interrogation droid involved, because the serum that it injects basically makes you a truth-telling zombie, which is kind of what he looked like. He could not walk on his own. Uh, they had to like pick him up and remove him from the room. Uh, One other thing happened is that we're seeing um, Cinta and Vel on Ferrix, and they are just kind of keeping an eye out on things. Andor's mom is trying to also investigate some stuff where there's some like secret area on Ferrix that she's trying to make sure is good to go so that the rebellion can come in, take that secret route, and then catch the Empire by surprise. Um, it wasn't going too well, but we'll have to see in future episodes where that ends up taking us.
I think she was trying to open the door to the tunnel that goes under the hotel, and the hotel being the current Imperial base on their town.
Correct.
But as she was trying to open the door, somehow she fell and hurt herself, and she's looking a little more frail than how she's been portrayed in the past.
Yeah. So as far as all of our characters, I think that about covers it. Was there anything story-wise that was noteworthy that we didn't mention?
Um, Around the time after she fell, but before Bix got taken by the Imperials, she was trying to, she convinced her boss to allow her to use the comm system, which might have been why he was taken, as if they somehow heard the message she was trying to get out or something. I'm not
Hmm.
entirely sure if those are related or not, or maybe it's coincidence. But she was using some sort of communication system um, in what's that called when you're talking in taps?
Morse code?
Yes, thank you. So she was talking in Morse code to, I don't know if she was just sending it out to whoever would listen or if she was specifically trying to send it out to Luthen. But Luthen's assistant was the one who was receiving this message and talking to Luthen about, we need to just let her be. And Luthen was trying to say the opposite, that he wants to find Andor and that Bix might be a good way to find her. And so there's kind of some tension between Luthen and his assistant on how to proceed in potentially finding Andor. And eventually they just turn off the comm system, so they're not listening to Bix's message anymore. Um, but other than that, I don't think there was really any other key points that we didn't mention yet for today's episode.
All right. What'd you think of it?
It was a lot. There was actually a lot of things that I think were kind of coming to an okay, this makes sense. Even just from all these characters that you mentioned, like six different character groups that all kind of come to the end at the end, being, was it Cinta And
Quinta, Vel.
yeah, so they're looking for Andor. Bix is trying to look for Andor. You know, you've got his mom there. You've got Dedra, who's also on that planet now looking for Andor. Like these paths are all finally starting to cross. Um, Luthen's trying to look for Andor. Somebody, it's nice to see that it's not just a ton of separate stories still. It's still very segmented, I think. There's a lot of change of scenery bouncing between the different storylines, which for me is still a little hard to follow because there's so much going on. It's kind of a lot to take in. You almost need to watch the episode two or three times to really catch everything. But um, it didn't seem like just filler. And so I appreciated there was more story going on. The one thing that I think is still kind of more of a mystery is what's going on between Mon Mothma, and I found out the guy's name, her friend, or her like childhood friend that she's trying to get help with. His name is Tay.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm still curious to see what they're up to and how that ties in with what Luthen's trying to do with Saw Gerrera and if they're still working together or maybe Mon Mothma's kind of abandoned Luthen and is trying to go down her own avenues to secure funds through Tay. So
Yeah, I actually didn't think of that. Like, wouldn't be surprised if she abandons him just because they had quite the tension in the previous episode, with, how each of them views how they should be approaching this rebellion. Um, Luthen being more brute force and then her being more secretive and uh, trying to gather a lot of supplies before they actually do something. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll find out.
I think seeing the prison area was pretty cool. A completely different side of Star Wars from what we've seen before. It wasn't your traditional jail bars cells. Um, there was when Andor was first walking into the jail area and he was being admitted into his work unit. And, you know, he had his hands behind his head because he was waiting for them to open the door. They kind of focused the camera on this wall of boots, which obviously he's not allowed to wear because they want him to be able to be shocked. But I wonder either they focused on it just to show it, just, you know, something to see, or they focused on it because he is going to use that at some point as part of an escape because they mention, you know, when there's an alarm that goes off that says you have 30 seconds before the floor, basically before the floor fries you, right? The little hallway in their bunks. And then when the lights are flashing, that's a 7-second warning. And then when the lights are red, that's when it fries you. And so I'm imagining or forecasting some sort of scene of him racing against that clock to get those boots on. So I don't know. We'll see if that goes anywhere. That's kind of just my prediction or hope of something exciting.
I thought it was quite important too, because that's when he was basically getting checked in. Um, and the camera, like you said, focused on the boots. So my guess is if the group, like Saw Gerrera and all them, get involved in trying to save him, he'll probably end up grabbing some boots on his way out or kill somebody and steal theirs. That works too.
What did
Um,
you think of the episode?
I thought it was pretty good. I was engaged. Uh, I'm curious to see where it's going. I think the Imperial base was one of my favorite parts, just seeing how different, it is from uh, our world, so to
Are
speak,
you are you referring to the prison or when they were interrogating Cyril?
the prison. So one of the things I thought was a little bit different was a lot of times in Star Wars when you have uh the different cells and whatnot, there's usually like a red
Like a force field?
shield, yeah, that goes over it so that you can't get out of your cell. And they got rid of that for this. Instead, they put in electrical floors. So I thought it was kind of interesting how they had that small little change. Um, I think it's interesting also that they have basic like I was envisioning that they're gonna have some sort of cafeteria because like in any movie where some dude goes to prison and then he has to break out, there's always that scene where they got their lunch sitting there, somebody stabs someone with a fork, or they get in a fight or something. But I don't think that's gonna happen in this show because their food supply is right there in the wall. They just, take it and guzzle it down. Um, so I thought it was interesting to see that their food source is just built into the wall. I'm just imagining this huge tank that, the Empire dumps a bunch of stuff into and then they grind it up, and that's your protein shake, buddy.
Oh,
Um,
gross.
yeah, it seems kind of weird to think about. Um, yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I'm curious to see where Mon Mothma's stuff goes as well. They didn't focus on them very much in the episode. I'd probably say she probably had the least amount of screen time. Uh, but my guess is that there's going to be something pretty important moving forward. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised if her friend is a double agent, um, just because the way that they're talking, like maybe he's just picking up on stuff and he's trying to snuff people out. But I'm really hoping that we get some sort of uh, clash with Palpatine in the Senate, where they're bickering back and forth. That's my hope. Um, but yeah, overall, I thought this episode was good. I'm excited to see what happens next. And the next episode is right around the corner. So that's what happens when you're super busy. Anything else for this episode?
Actually, yes, there are a couple other things I wanted to mention. One was on the prison. I thought it was kind of odd. We've seen so many different species in all these different places, be it the towns or the beach town that Cassian was trying to vacation at, or be a tourist at. Um, that it was, I don't think we saw any species other than human at this prison. And it was all men in this bunk. So I don't know if maybe the women get some sort of different sentencing or different, maybe they don't trust them to be strong enough to handle these types of parts or something. I don't it I wonder if we will see any type of, like, where's all the women? Where's all the other species? Like, why is it just humans on this prison bunk, if you will? Did you notice that too?
I did notice that. I kind of wonder if, so when he was assigned and he was put in a transport, I wonder if that's like when a different transport was. Like
Mm.
all the human males go here, all the human females go in this one, all of XYZ male here, female there. I kind of wonder if maybe that's what's going on, but can't really say that it is because I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was Cinta. And then what was the other girl's name?
Vel.
Val. So the way that they're talking when they're trying to find Andor and they're kind of watching Bix and the other friend off in a distance, they mentioned their love for each other and that Val is going to go and leave the planet, so it's not so suspicious to have two of them there looking for Andor. So only Cinta is going to stay behind and remember the cause and all that stuff. And so we see Val leave. And it makes me wonder if this is going to be a time when something happens to Cinta, something, where she seems like a very hands-off person. She doesn't seem like somebody who's gonna get in too deep and like cause a disruption. She's a very behind the scenes kind of a person, but I feel like something's going to happen to her because of the way that she said goodbye to Val. Did you get that too?
I just noticed that they keep leaving her behind. Because they left her behind in the heist, leaving her behind now. I'm sure they've done it in the past. So, um, I feel like she's used to it, and maybe I think she'll be fine. But, um, I mean, these people need more reasons to hate the Empire, so it wouldn't surprise me to see her die in some sort of skirmish. But I don't know. I think she's used to being left behind.
The lady in the red cloak from the previous episode, when Vel was asking her, what Sento was doing, she had said Sento was doing what she was told or doing, what she needed to for the rebellion. And so it's kind of, I think, her reasoning again for telling Vel to leave of, you got to remember the cause and what we're doing here and whatnot. And that's why I'm kind of thinking, maybe something's gonna happen just because she's doing it for the cause.
Hmm.
Just the fact that they're separating again, while they're looking for Andor. I just wanted to make sure we noted that. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else for this episode. I know that was a lot to take in, but I think we
Yeah,
covered it pretty
there's
good.
a lot of exposition, I think, in this episode. Um, I think it's the first of another arc of like 3 episodes. So, we got some story building here, and I'm sure we'll get some pretty interesting things in the next episode, and then probably some action in the third one, before we head towards the last 2 episodes of the show. But yeah, that's about it for us for this discussion. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and drop us a like if you liked it. And then also drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the episode, and anything that we may have missed that was important, anything that you noticed. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.